and our players across the league are too often the targets. This is not something any player in this league should have to tolerate.
Do you think Caitlin's being used as a pawn? Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening, and that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all.
What do you know? Everyone seems to be completely taken aback by what has been going on. To be honest, though, this moment seems inevitable to those of us who have been paying attention. This is where it all really blew up. You'll want to stay to the very end to see why the Indiana Fever are about to make some really significant adjustments, I promise. The team recently made a number of extremely important statements, including one involving its star, Caitlin Clark, that shocked the league. The worst part is this. Amidst all of this, the renowned Subbird emerged and vehemently condemned she witnessed widespread racism in the WNBA. Let's be honest. This was long overdue. Consider it. Throughout their careers, countless luminaries, MVPs, and gold medal winners have all subtly experienced similar difficulties. But suddenly, almost without warning, someone had the guts and the arrogance to actually stand up. Additionally, Subbird wasn't merely speaking to herself. Oh no. She brought the kind of heat and indisputable truth that you simply cannot ignore, armed with what I can only call pyrotechnics. And believe me when I say that the Indiana Fever camp's response to this will shape their future. However, before we delve into the details,
There is one thing I want to reset, that we want to reset, and it's the language being used around fans. Fever fans, Caitlin fans, new fans. That actually has...
The most amazing part is that, with everything on the line, Sue Bird didn't even think twice about getting into a heated podcast discussion with Megan Rapinoe. Despite the enormous danger involved and the possibility of destroying her career, she made the decision. She boldly asked the difficult questions on that podcast. She was curious as to why Caitlin Clark was experiencing such strong racial animosity. Why were her genuinely remarkable achievements, record-breaking sales figures, and indisputable influence being so flagrantly ignored? What's even more bizarre? She went one step farther and discreetly hinted at the very real possibility of a systemic league plot that targets Caitlin in particular. Take a moment to consider that.
Did you, when you went and kind of swatted at Caitlin, did you intend to hit her in the eye? And if so, could you just, or if not, either way, could you talk about what happened on that play?
I don't even know why I would intend to hit anybody in the eye. That doesn't even make sense to me. But no, I didn't. I didn't know I hit her, actually. I was trying to make a play on the ball, and I guess I followed through and I hit her. So obviously it's never intentional. That's not even like the type of player that I am. So yeah.
Did you and Marina kind of laugh about it afterwards? It looked like there was later on in the game they caught you guys laughing about it.
No, I just told you I didn't even know I hit her. So I can't laugh about something I didn't know happened.
So, where did it all really start to get heated? It actually began when D. Carrington discovered that, following a game, journalist Christine was questioning us about what appeared to be a fairly strange incident. I understand what you're thinking at this moment. You would think that this was just another typical post-game question, wouldn't you? Athletes are frequently questioned about a variety of difficult situations, disputes, and on-court mishaps. But this time, my goodness, things took a drastic turn and quickly got worse. Megan Rapinoe responded right away with her trademark cutting wit, saying that even while the query seemed innocent at first, its simple phrase conveyed extremely terrible racial undertone. Suddenly, a whole new and, to be honest, completely critical viewpoint on the subject emerged, completely changing the story.
Honestly, hearing it initially, my visceral reaction was like, that's not good. That doesn't feel good. That feels racist, to be honest.
And let's be really honest. The unmistakable sense was that it seemed racist. Sue Bird, being Sue Bird, could not and would not allow this opportunity to pass without adopting her typical rebellious stance. She wasn't merely critical. She publicly criticized the media, blaming ESPN in particular for sensationalizing and distorting the story to make it much more contentious. She made a really clear point. The way the media framed and presented the original question may have been more racist than the subject itself. Oh, how unquestionably problematic my buddies were. Sue painstakingly highlighted a harsh, indisputable reality. Athletes of color frequently experience a more intense scrutiny and criticism than their white peers. Consider it this way. What actually occurs when a black athlete finds himself in a comparable circumstance? All of a sudden, it becomes more than just an incident. It turns into a much more serious issue, a contentious argument, or sadly, it usually turns into a full-fledged racial controversy. It is impossible to overlook the double standard.
Disagree with you on Christine Brennan's question being dickish, or she shouldn't have answered it, because it was something that was out there that everybody was talking about. And so she asked the question, and it was a great opportunity for Carrington to, on the record, say, no, I didn't do it. And that's all that happened. So I do disagree with you. I don't think it was a dickish question. I think it was a fine question based on what was going on at the moment.
Sue, ever the perceptive observer, made the connection right away and explained that this wasn't an isolated incident. It was clearly a part of a much, much bigger and more established image. She was essentially still warming up when she made this statement. For her part, journalist Christine bravely chastised the media and the WNBA for their blatant inability to control and, quite frankly, for purposefully allowing these harmful rumors to thrive and proliferate. Even if she hadn't planned for things to get so out of hand in the first place. This is when Sue's intelligence really shines. She is adamant that much less attention would have been paid to the entire situation if Dee Carrington had been a white athlete, most likely blowing over with hardly a ripple. But, and this is important, if a white player had been in Carrington's same position, we would have been treated to a fully realized, painstakingly constructed story with every potential consequence and emotional angle fully explored. It is very evident that there is a double standard.
Led to the Twitter trolls and bots taking over. And what started there was this narrative of petty, jealous players hating on Caitlin. That's really what happened. That's where it started. That we must just dislike her, that we look at her side-eyed, that we don't want her to come in the WNBA and be successful, that we're hating on her, right? So we're petty.
In the immediate aftermath, a toxic narrative was amplified by a full-scale takeover of Twitter, complete with trolls and bots. And it all began with this incredibly thin but ubiquitous narrative that suggested jealous, narrow-minded gamers were just hating Caitlin Clark. Actually, that's exactly what happened. The story started with the subtle notion that we simply don't like her, that we can't see things from her point of view, that we despise her, and that we don't want her to be successful in the WNBA. The message was, in essence, we are envious and petty. This is where things really get crazy. Sue continued to meticulously describe how one seemingly harmless remark from the catalyst for this whole perilous story was none other than Diana Taurasi, one of the sport's most recognizable characters. Indeed, the legend herself chose to casually make a statement that was so potent that it literally ignited the WNBA. We are discussing the eruption of total, pure pandemonium. All due to the insane, unanticipated, crippling effect those first words had. Sue Bird, our regular voice of reason, was forced to intervene and calmly explain what was going on. And this time, it had a much bigger, more devastating impact than anyone could have predicted. Sue wasn't simply talking about the usual rough-and-tumble competitiveness when she said that things got ugly. Occasional squabbling on the court. No, she meant that as soon as overt hate speech began to appear, the game essentially ceased to be about basketball. You see, when supporters become enraged at problems that go well beyond the game itself, such as racism, ingrained privilege, and any other unpleasant aspect you can think of, you'll know you've gone too far at that point.
Did I think anybody was playing dirty against Caitlin? Not at any point did I think Caitlin was targeted. And I'm going to stop on that word because what happened was these petty jealousy narratives that got formed. Then when the season started and people saw people blocking Caitlin's shot or picking her up full court, it then became, oh, they're targeting her.
Sue Bird then revealed that Caitlin Clark had to deal with much more than just the typical elbows and ugly trash language. This was different, oh no. Here, we're not discussing symbolic blows. Caitlin was actually avoiding actual ones. Every time she took the court, she also felt tremendous pressure to be ready for threats that went far beyond the opposing team tactics. This was not fair play at all. She was being deliberately and maliciously mocked by players. Sue made it quite evident that this involved more than just mounting a formidable defense. The usual hustle and tumble, the usual physicality of a WNBA gamepad in contrast to Caitlin's intense hatred and targeting. This was unquestionably nasty and very personal. Importantly, Sue did not downplay the situation's obvious racial component despite her deep grasp of it. She explained that there was more to Caitlin's circumstances than just why she was receiving so much attention or why it seemed like she was given more promotions than other players. Racism, privilege, and the deep-seated annoyance that some players of color saw her achievement as a metaphor for something much, much bigger were all there in this toxic mixture, overshadowing her true basketball abilities. Sue didn't hold back at all. This was no longer just a sporting issue. Rather, it had developed into a powerful mirror of the larger systemic racism that pervaded the league and the simmering resentment that was now unsettlingly manifesting itself in real time on the court, with Caitlin Clark tragically trapped in the harsh center of it all.
That it is right now, like it's popping right now, and just being able to know that, like, I'm happy I'm happy to see all the girls being able to pop it and look cute on the runway and being able to continue that. Because
now, some of the most outspoken critics, such as Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas, have vehemently maintained that Caitlin Clark is effectively passing the white girl. They have not remained silent. They have been very vocal in their condemnation, even accusing Caitlin Clark and her fan following of racism. Sue Bird discussed Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas in her usual frank manner. It seemed as though she had been holding on to this tea for too long and that now was the right moment to share it. Let me assure you that Angel Reese has been extremely self-assured and vocal ever since her spectacular time at LSU. And Alyssa Thomas, she's a certified cornerstone, a Connecticut Sun player. These two influential athletes argue that Caitlin is the WNBA's poster child for white privilege, claiming that she is getting preferential treatment based only on the color of her skin rather than her exceptional abilities. This is a serious charge that is igniting a heated discussion.
All of what I've said led to this group of people being able to push those racist agendas, which really has been, in my opinion, the cause of all of this. And everybody from this moment on has, not everybody, but a lot of people have been operating under the assumption that these narratives, particularly the targeting narrative, is true.
What about Sue's response to these serious charges, though? Let me assure you that Sue Bird would not tolerate it at all. She made it her duty to clearly show that this narrative of white privilege was not only seriously flawed but completely untrue, and that it urgently needed to be abandoned. She did everything in her enormous power to achieve this goal. This simply isn't the case right now, she said firmly and with unwavering conviction. Because, in her opinion, Angel Reese and Alyssa Thomas's actions were not only unethical but also seriously harmful to the league and its players. Instead of building up, she perceived it as tearing down.
Racism has been impacting the WNBA well before this year. This is not a new
for
thing.
sure.
This is, and in that way, I do think Caitlin's being used as a pawn. Caitlin didn't bring racism to the WNBA. This has been happening. And that, I think, is what's been such a shock for all of us, that other people are surprised by this.
This is the essence of Sue Bird's viewpoint. Her final assessment of the circumstances. She was basically saying that Caitlin is undoubtedly receiving a lot of attention, but let's not pretend for a second that it's only because she's white. She is a once-in-a-generation player, which is why. Bird is adamant that the entire event has been purposefully twisted and distorted into a vast story that hardly resembles reality at all. Sue was simply not going to let Ree and Thomas sensationalize or misrepresent this scenario, especially when Caitlin Clark is already strongly in the spotlight. To be honest, Bird's ascent through the ranks and her supremacy on the court have been extremely rapid. Anyone who watches her play will undoubtedly be astounded by her overwhelming impact. She merits the limelight.
She's obviously doing amazing. Her game speaks for itself. I think my favorite part is just women's basketball, women's sports really, but women's basketball has been on the rise. And it's kind of like what Magic and Bird was to men's basketball. Like this moment, we kind of needed something.
This is
to
that
just
moment.
and Caitlin's that moment. And I think a lot of it has to do with her.
Now be ready for one of the most startling revelations ever. In fact, Sue Bird claimed to have had direct communication with Caitlin Clark, genuinely getting to know her and comprehending her path. And you are aware of the implications for the whole story of white privilege that Thomas and Ree have been vigorously promoting. In fact, Sue made it very clear that Caitlyn is not a wealthy athlete who miraculously benefits from her skin tone. Rather, she has been working really hard, grinding non-stop, and genuinely earning her rise through the ranks, just like any other committed player. Ever brave, Bird doesn't hesitate to openly admit that the situation is far more intricate and subtle than most people are ready to acknowledge. She claims that this divided narrative needs to be eliminated. I completely understand why it's occasionally used. She might give in. When you are asked a difficult subject during an interview, it is very simple to simply brush off the Fever fanbase. Here's the harsh truth, though. All of these new fans have to go since they aren't Fever supporters entirely. No, it is incorrect. Caitlyn's fans are not participating. The group consists of a large number of people. Let's be precise. When we think about the Fever, we're dealing about a very large and varied population. As we examine the unsettling details of this, we are actually talking about a poisonous part of that corporation as a whole. People who actively spread hate speech, advance racial agendas, and deepen division on the internet. Oh, I see. Although they are pretending to be fans, their actual motivations are very different. And things have gotten so horrible at this very moment. Subbard is sure that this whole race issue has been deliberately exploited, turning into a clear justification for other players to physically and verbally abuse Caitlyn Clark. On the court itself, it seems that the grave accusation of racism is being blatantly exploited as an excuse to harshly attack her, and the problem is no longer limited to basketball strategy. Bird made it very evident that this isn't just a competitive game anymore. In a really unacceptable way, people are purposefully directing their personal complaints towards Caitlyn. Whether such complaints are the result of ingrained prejudice, pure jealousy, or any other negative feeling.